Muchas gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, President. There are many uncertainties, but there is one certainty. We don't know if we'll have a deal or not. We don't know whether after centuries of fishing in British waters, whether our boats will have to stop because of the whims of politicians. This irresponsibility has been worsened by the fact that we don't have a withdrawal agreement on fisheries. If we don't have an agreement, then the European fleet will have to look for other waters where it can continue to fish, and the UK will have to look for other markets, and the whole world will be asking why. The Parliament and the position of the Parliament and Council is clear. We haven't changed and we won't change at this crucial time in the negotiations. We want to achieve a sensible fisheries agreement, and I recognise and would thank Mr. Barnier for the huge efforts that he's made. This hasn't been possible so far, despite the constructive attitude of the European Union. This doesn't mean that there shouldn't be an agreement. The European fishermen have experienced difficulties and will continue to function. The common fisheries policy is a compromise between the EU member states, including the United Kingdom, because they were present in constructing this system, and it wouldn't be fair or acceptable for European fishermen to be deprived of their rights. We don't want to see a no-deal withdrawal. We have to continue to work up until the very final moment, even though that final moment is all too close. Vessels flying European flags have to be able to continue to fish. And at the end of the day, the UK and the world as a whole know that this is the best solution. So in doing this, the EU has to maintain as united, more united than ever. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now for 2.5 minutes, the floor goes to Kati Piri.
Colleagues, 1 year ago, we offered the United Kingdom something we had never offered any third country. The most comprehensive partnership that the EU has ever concluded. And we stand by our offer. The European Parliament has consistently been extremely flexible, patient and constructive throughout the negotiations. And we will continue to do everything within our power to avoid a no deal. Because we are aware of the crucial importance of such an agreement for our citizens and our businesses. But we also remain realistic. Only 13 days left until the end of the transition period. A no deal has never been closer, and our citizens and businesses deserve clarity and predictability. And that is why today we are ensuring that planes can keep flying, trucks can keep running, and fishermen can keep fishing after December 31st. And these contingency measures, of course, cannot substitute for a deal, but they will alleviate, if necessary, the otherwise unavoidable disruption for both the EU and UK citizens. Because in spite of Michel Barnier's tireless work and dedication, the UK government still has not found the courage to find an agreement. Prime Minister Johnson has yet to acknowledge that every agreement is a compromise and there's no such thing as having all the benefits of EU membership if you decided to leave it. And when trade deals are normally about convergence, this agreement deals with future divergence. When sovereign states decide to strike a deal, it is normally not used as a badge to prove their sovereignty. And when all European nations are in the midst of an economic recession due to a pandemic, it would only be sensible to avoid another blow to our businesses and citizens. The European Parliament has been patient, but democracy cannot and will not bend to the UK's lack of responsibility. It is Boris Johnson who refused to even consider an offer for the transition period. And our right to full democratic scrutiny of any agreement will not be compromised, and there will be no provisional application without parliamentary consent. It is my sincere hope that a deal will be reached, a good and a fair deal for the citizens of both sides of the Channel. And it will have been worth it, every single second of it. Because as one of the greatest from the UK would say about these negotiations, all is well that ends well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The floor now goes to Lisa Schreinermacher for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. There are less than 2 weeks left until January 1st, and there is still no certainty that we can agree to a deal. It would be a grave understatement to say that this situation is very unpredictable for our citizens and companies. The only certainty that they have now is that the situation will change. With or without a deal, there will be different rules and different procedures. But let's try to keep the hurt of Brexit to a minimum. The EU and the UK both benefit from a fair deal, a deal that ensures a level playing field, fair competition and is future-proof. And I hope the negotiators are still aiming for that and that they will conclude a deal as soon as possible. So we can finally say, you have done your job, now let us do ours. So the European and UK people finally just can get back to their jobs and their lives. Let's put our differences aside and focus on what unites us, because a good deal is in everyone's interest and should form the basis for our future relationship based on shared values and appreciation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The floor goes now for 2 minutes to Harald Wilimski.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to understand this debate about deal or no deal, we have to just look back to 2016, where a majority of the British population said that they did not want to belong to this European Union any longer. And I think for the European family of peoples, it would have been the right task to have looked at that decision and met it with respect. And the majority of Brits would have been met with respect as well. But that wasn't done. From the very outset, it was deemed to be a decision that could not have come to pass. Many of the people here did not meet that decision with friendship. They disapproved, they wanted to have punitive sanctions, and the worst for me was that the Chief Negotiator for the EU met the Brits with an unfriendly disposition, which was not really should have been placed in this sort of situation, where the former president of the European Council said that he thought they belonged in hell. So we know that there has been certain people comparing partners to undesirables from the French Revolution. That's not the way forward. The decision's been taken. The Brits are in the process of leaving the European Union. They can start moving, they can take decisions. Just 2 examples here. In the corona crisis that affects all of us, we have a situation where the Brits have already been vaccinating people for 2 weeks for those who want a vaccination. The European Union hasn't even started with that. A second example, something important to me, is in the situation of torturous animal transports. The Brits are in the process of putting a stop to those torturous animal transports. The EU is not in a position today to make conditions appropriate for that sort of thing. So I'm calling on you, ladies and gentlemen, use the final stretch of these negotiations to meet the Brits with respect and friendship, because maybe one day, once this European Union has been reformed and the Brits want to return, then you must bear in mind that the final stage of negotiation was characterised by friendship and respect to you and them, not disapproving sounds, because that's not the sort of thing we need to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor now goes for 1.5 minutes to Grace O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, ask not, as the line goes, for whom the bell tolls. As the clock ticks down to December 31st, we look forward to ringing in a new year that will surely be an improvement on the one we've been through. The bells of the new year will herald hope, but so too will they toll for a bleaker tale as December 31st marks the end of an era and Brexit becomes a harsh reality. This week, we're seeing contingency measures being put in place in preparation for a no-deal Brexit on issues including transport and fisheries. The measures are a bare but crucial minimum in terms of protecting livelihoods and links with our EU partners. But they do not provide any clarity around protection of our waters or our coastal communities and fishers, the men and the women who bring food to our tables. Scouts in Ireland say, "Be Olive, be prepared. We can but try." Ask not, Madam President, for whom the bell tolls, I repeat. Brexit will impact on all of our lives, and the Brexit bell will toll for each and every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now for 2.5 minutes, our colleague Brudzinski.
Pani Przewodnicząca.
Madam Chair, the United Kingdom has left the European Union, but it's not leaving Europe. Great Britain is going to be our ally, our partner, our neighbour. We have to work on our future relationship with the Great Britain. It's important, not only during the negotiation period, but it is important because we want to be united also in the face of growing challenges to the Western world. We have to include important ties. We have common values, we have common objectives. But also the deal, of course, has to guarantee level playing field, fair competition, and we have to take into account the sensibilities of both parties. We want to be ambitious when it comes to access to our respective markets. We want to guarantee fair competition. We have to streamline controls on borders. We want to have high standards of control for foodstuff because, you know, when the foodstuff are delayed at the border, it's very difficult for our businesses. We have to have clear rules on transport because we have union transporters working in the UK. So we have to have very ambitious deals on that. I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that, of course, we have the economic dimension, but we also have to have security dimension of our cooperation. The Great Britain has left the EU, but we have the same challenges. We have to exchange data. We have to cooperate between courts. We have to streamline our extradition procedures. We have to cooperate within Europol. All those elements have to be part and parcel of the future deal. We have trade in drugs, we have trade in human beings, we have terrorism. These are very real challenges for both partners, and Brexit has changed nothing in it. We have to cooperate to provide prosperity and security to both our citizens on both parts of the channel. There is also one more thing, one foundation for both parties. We have the same values coming out from the Old and New Testament, where we have the same values coming from the Roman law. The Christmas time is coming, so I would like to extend my wishes to both parts, to people in the European Union and also those who are in Great Britain, also the Poles living there.
1 minute, Claire Daly.
Thanks, President. There's no doubt about it. Breakups can often be ugly and hostile, and this one has certainly been no exception. And I, for one, am heartily glad that it's coming to an end, because for 4 years we've been fed a diet in Ireland that this is the end of the world as we know it. But you know what? it isn't, because business is business and a way will be found. It may be the case that some of the new arrangements are disruptive in the short term, but new arrangements will be found. And I just think it's an awful pity that a lot of this debate was marred by so much sneering and triumphalism. From the one hand, sort of claiming that, sure, aren't those Brits awful Egypts? They didn't even know what they were voting to the outrage that the Royal Navy might police British waters. Well, why wouldn't they, when Spanish, French and Portuguese trawlers are already destroying the seabeds and interfering with our fisheries rights in Ireland? So the idea that the EU is driven by high values and the Brits are just out for themselves is utter nonsense. Both sides are looking out for themselves. But we should remember here today that 17 million European citizens voted to leave the European Union. There are tens of millions more who are being let down. The real division isn't between the EU and the UK. It's between the haves and the have-nots. And we start dealing with that, or there'll be a lot more Brexits to come.
Thank you. And now for 1 minute, Clara Ponsati-Obiols.
Thank you, President. The outcome is still uncertain, but whatever the outcome, let me thank you for the efforts of the negotiation teams. But the difficulty to get this agreement should be a lesson for us in the future. If the EU is convinced of our own potential and strength, we should see with no fear becoming more open and flexible, both to enter and to leave. The EU needs a Clarity Act to lay the ground for an orderly exit of any member state with a mandate to leave. And it should also establish clear paths into the EU, a path that we hope our fellow Scottish friends will follow soon. The basis also for the internal enlargement of the Union should be also fixed with no taboos. This is the way that we as Catalans wish to follow soon. Political unions strictly based on transparent and democratic principles last longer than those that aren't. The freer and the more democratic the rules are, the more united we will remain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now for 2 minutes, Radek Sikorski.
Pani Przewodnicząca.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, as the previous President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, said, we faced a choice between a hard Brexit and a no Brexit. And he was right. Today, we are facing a hard Brexit or an ultra-hard Brexit. Millions of Europeans, companies, British citizens still don't know what the agreement will look like and whether it will be there at all on the 1st of January. We will have to fill millions of forms in order for everything to stay more or less the same. Well, I still don't know what higher good will come from Brexit. I would like to thank the European Commission. I'd like to congratulate the Commission. I'd like to congratulate our Chief Negotiator for the professional way they have been working. In particular, I'd like to thank for ensuring the rights of the EU citizens so that everyone is treated the same way by the Brits. I want to make it clear to the Polish people that thanks to the European Union, we will not be discriminated against. And also, I'd like to say this to our British friends. I'd like to say that if we were negotiating with any other country, and if
12 days before the end of the transitional period, we still didn't know what the result would be, we would already terminate those negotiations. This is proof of our friendship with the European Union. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas, and I hope next year will be a better one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now for 1.5 minutes, Bernd Lange.
Präsidentin, Herr Kommissar.
Madam President, Commissioner, colleagues. No treaty is the end of the world. Our two biggest trading partners, the US and China, we have no trade treaty with, and things still work fairly well. And we're also preparing for our relationship with the UK, and today we will adopt emergency measures. But that's not what we want. We want a good treaty. However, colleagues, we don't want a treaty at any price, and for that reason we as the European Parliament need to scrutinise it very carefully. We have a special responsibility. Moreover, we're the only Parliament that will vote on this treaty. The 27 member state parliaments will not vote on it, nor will some regional parliaments, and neither will the British lower house, only the European Parliament, and for that reason we'll look at it long and hard. And really, we need to put down a deadline. It finishes by Sunday, otherwise we won't have the time, and the negotiations will have to proceed on a different basis. We need to check carefully whether we've managed to get fair competition conditions, or whether services will be secured, especially public services, and whether we can manage to ensure that we enshrine consumer protection standards, or protect workers' rights and improve the environment further. We want to see all that in the treaty. The door is still open, so...
And make it happen.
Thank you very much. And now for 1 minute, Guy Verhofstadt.
Yes, thank you. So I'm an optimist by nature, so I think that ultimately there will be a deal. Because it's in the interest of both parties to have the deal, in the interest of the UK and also in the interest of the European Union. But I think also, let's be a little bit realistic. Huh? Everybody talks now about, oh, someday there has to be a deal. Possible, yeah, hopefully, yes. But let's be realistic. It could be that we need all the time to have this deal, to negotiate this deal. And then there could be solutions for that. A technical prolongation of the transition, a provisional application of the agreement, or even stopping the clock. Huh? That's also done in such negotiations. What is now the most important for us all is not to panic from the European side and to fully support our negotiator, Michel Barnier, and to have, at the end, a fair competition, because it's about that. It will be far more devastating for our companies if the outcome of this negotiation is an unfair competition in their disadvantage. That is the reason why we have to continue to be very clear on this. There has to be a level playing field. No unfair competition can be accepted. Also on fish. If they want that we eat their fish, well, we have to have the possibility to catch their fish in their waters. That's the bit. And then last remark that I want to make is a request to Michel Barnier and to the negotiation team, that is to do something on Erasmus. I know the cherry-picking attitude from the Brits, who are, in fact, is devastating for Erasmus, but let's take a unilateral measure towards the students in Britain, that they can continue unilaterally to make use of Erasmus. It's a pro-European generation, this young generation, and it's this generation who will bring back the UK inside the European family in the next decades. Dear colleagues, thank you.
Now for 2 minutes, Laura Huhtasaari.
Arvoisa puhemies.
Madam President, Why is the EU so unattractive that Norway and Switzerland don't want to join? Why does an old state of the EU want to leave, the UK? Has the EU actually looked in the mirror to see what's going on, what the state of play is? The UK has already concluded 60 trade agreements, but it seems impossible for them to conclude one with the EU. They want to take back control of their borders, their legislation, and their fishing waters. They also want to be free of the EU Court of Justice. But that's obvious because the UK wants to be an independent state. Boris Johnson should ensure that the Brits get back the things that they have voted for as a nation. And the EU has to stop being fearful of that. The EU often says, well, if you leave this EU paradise, then things will go badly for you. But we have to stop fear-mongering about the future. Who would have thought 3 years ago that we would have been facing the struggle with the coronavirus that we are facing? Now, what's going to happen with the EU in future and with the member states? Well, time will tell. But one thing is clear. It is better to be free and poor than prosperous and unfree. I actually am envious of the Brits because they can actually do something in the world now.
Next speaker for 1.5 minutes is Caroline Rose.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the negotiator, Mr. Barnier. I'd like to use my speaking time to talk about the fishermen. Their situation is more than worrying. I've been to meet the fishermen in Brittany and Normandy who explained to me the risks that Brexit was bringing to bear down on them. In the north, in Boulogne, for example, some fishermen do 80% of their fishing in British waters. If there's no agreement, the Europeans will no longer be able to access those waters. That would lead to many vessels shifting into European waters, in particular coastal waters, and that major concentration, but also quotas being set unilaterally, would cause a genuine ecological catastrophe. All fishermen would then be threatened, including those who don't fish in British waters. But an agreement won't resolve everything. Despite the promises, it's clear that an agreement will be made at the price of a significant drop in European quota. Come what may, member states must give priority to protecting small-scale artisanal fisheries. Quota reductions must not be applied across the fleet in blanket fashion. According to Article 17 of the CFP, member states must use economic, social and environmental factors when allocating fishing authorisations. No one would understand it if an industrial super trawler fishing and then freezing its fish for export to the other side of the world continued, whilst at the same time artisanal fishermen that breathe life into our coastal economies and who care for our environment are shut out. Therefore, there's a twofold priority. Let's protect marine resources and let's protect artisanal fishing. We cannot have one without the other. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and now for 1 minute, Mark Botenga.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So, from Brexit, maybe we can draw 3 lessons. The workers in the UK who are going to suffer from social dumping, they see no alternative to this competitive, unfair union. Boris Johnson has promised better conditions for workers, better wages, and now for the year's work they're getting worse conditions and worse payment. And thirdly, Flanders. In Flanders, SMEs are going to suffer. It may cost us thousands of jobs. and the jobs in Antwerp will be put under pressure for the dockers, for example, and yet Vlaams Belang is still applauding this as an excellent Brexit. Their nationalism, your nationalism, Mr. Annemans, is leading to disruption in social fabric and lower wages. I can tell you directly, this is not going to happen. No way, Mr. Annemans, no way. Thank you.
Grazie. Now for 1 minute, Ivan Sinčić.
Hvala vam lijepo. Trebali bi se ovdje vratiti.
Thank you, Chair. We should go back to the beginning. Why did the UK want to leave the EU? They were disappointed with the way this organization functions, and they are not the only ones. When it comes to Croatia, when our citizens see how the funds from the EU are spent, they are also shocked and disappointed. They are also disappointed when they see how the tenders are implemented in case of EU funds. Let me mention project for waste disposal, Babina Gora. In this call for proposal, you have the old methods specifying exactly the equipment you need in order to narrow down the criteria for the selection of the best tender. There are other examples as well. Very often you have the principle first come, first served, without taking into account the quality of the proposal. Instead of becoming a tool for development, the funds have become a tool for destruction. Unless the EU brings its home in order, the Brexit will only be the beginning.
Präsidentin, liebe Kolleginnen und
Madam President, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, one thing is certain for the European Parliament: there can be no agreement without the consent of the European Parliament that we can give the citizens of Europe, and there'll be no consent from the European Parliament without detailed legal scrutiny. I'd like to thank all those who have contributed to cohesion within the European Union. De facto, it's always about the same thing. We, the European Parliament, the Commission and the Council, are defending the rights and values of the European Union. We are defending the rights of the citizens. We are working to ensure fairness in how we relate to one another. We are standing for the continuation of the peace process in Northern Ireland. That's the basis of the cohesion, and that's the basis of the negotiations. On the one hand of the Channel, unfortunately, what has been asserted is a form of tactics, cherry picking and arrogance and duplicity towards one's own citizens about one's strategy. We are predictable and prepared to negotiate and prepared for every situation, and that's why we are today adopting contingency plans to deal with an unprepared no deal in the area of transportation of goods and persons, aviation, safety and fisheries. But we must also learn the consequences from Brexit in the debate over the future of Europe, and we must learn the lessons of Brexit in the way we deal with one another. There are many Brexit suspects amongst us in Hungary and Poland and other member states. Those who break shared laws and play off the interests of their citizens is not contributing to securing a common future. withdrawal solves no problems. It doesn't answer any of the promises of the Brexit advocates. None of those promises can be delivered except withdrawal. That is then a defeat.
12 minutes is Kathleen van Bremt.
Dank u wel, mevrouw de voorzitter.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And Maros, thank you and your team, and indeed Michel Barnier, our lead negotiator, for the position you've adopted. We don't know what's going to happen, but thank you very much. Maybe not congratulations yet, but we hope so. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new deadline that's been established because it has to be clear till when we are prepared to negotiate to reach an agreement. I still hope we'll reach an agreement, and we need that time to scrutinise that. Now, this Parliament can be extremely flexible, and we can stretch that to a considerable degree, but then we have to evaluate this on the basis of texts. We have to have a text. We're happy to work day and night if there's an agreement on Sunday, but we have to have a text. Secondly, I think it's important to understand that here we stand shoulder to shoulder, not just here in Parliament, but Parliament with the Council and with the Commission. We have to maintain that defence. Why? Because it's not just about an agreement with the UK. It's more than that. It's about the essence of the European Union. That's why this agreement is so difficult, because it's about the essence of what we stand for. Yes, it's about our social model and the maintenance of that social model and the possibility of extending that. Yes, it is about the protection of the environment and the climate, and the possibility to maintain that and to bolster defence, and that is what's behind this agreement as well. And nobody, ladies and gentlemen, nobody can threaten that. Even our fair friends in the UK. Thank you.
Very much. Now for 1 minute, Barry Andrews.
Thank you, Madam President. Otto von Habsburg was a member of the European Parliament for 20 years after 1979. He believed profoundly in the essential unity of the European peoples. He insisted that an empty chair be kept in the chamber of the European Parliament to symbolise his belief in the inevitable accession of Central and Eastern European countries. Madam President, 16 million UK voters voted to remain in the European Union. They were Northern Irish, they were Scots, they were Londoners, but above all, they were young people. And I believe we should keep an empty chair in our chamber to symbolise our hope in their eventual return and the welcome they will receive. I'm not sure if I'll be here to see that day, but I very much hope that I live to see the day when UK MEPs come back through the doors of our chamber. And if that chair symbolises nothing else, it should symbolise the towering achievement of the European Union in helping to broker peace on the island of Ireland and bringing about a golden age of Anglo-Irish relations, whether through accession in 1973, the Good Friday Agreement in 1998 and its implementation, and now the Northern Ireland Protocol. I hope and believe that I can say with confidence that Ireland will be the first to welcome them back. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for 2 minutes, Gunnar Beck.
Thank you very much, Mrs. President. The EU commenced trade negotiations with excessive demands for ECJ jurisdiction, regulatory alignment on EU terms, and maximum EU fishing rights. Britain wanted a Canada-style deal and regulatory sovereignty. Since then, the EU gave way on the ECJ in return for UK acceptance of the regulatory status quo. Negotiations also shifted from dynamic realignment to rules that would allow Brussels to offset higher EU costs imposed by future EU climate change standards not applicable in the UK. If such sanctions respect WTO ceilings and leave Britain to trade freely with other countries, UK sovereignty would not be unduly abridged. Germany has a huge trade surplus with Britain. France gains 2, UK trade is vital to Ireland, whilst EU trade matters even more to the British economy. In these circumstances, a trade deal is almost an imperative of reason. May I therefore remind the EU that trade deals are about trade and mutual advantage and not about climate change or world rescue missions. Nor is it wise to make every issue a point of principle. Let me close, unusually perhaps, on a positive note. If reason prevails and a deal is struck, this will be due in no small measure to Michel Barnier's commitment, acumen and diplomatic sensitivity. And as for the charge he's bypassing Parliament, that is the very last thing that crossed my mind as a member of the UK Coordination Group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For 1 minute now, Terry Reintke.